Hi, my name is Brian. I'm a computer programmer, podcaster. So, what is programming? Uh, Programming is an art very related to magic, where you kind of put together at the very start a list of things that you want to achieve or a kind of world that you're trying to build, and then you get to the computer nowadays and you like specify the spells that you need to achieve what you want. A magician may want to have thunder. So if I want to build a to-do list application, I would kind of analyze it and then come up with the various components, and then I instruct the computer to realize that world or to-do list application I want. So pretty much that's programming from a concrete point of view. Yeah, so I got into programming out of curiosity. I got to reading about computers, Bill Gates. I read Encarta Encyclopedia and went to school to study how to program. It was mostly mathematics, and then took it from there, going to the library, reading books about programming, studying specific programming languages, looking for mentors like Chachi Mambe back when I was in Cameroon, and started building web applications and took it from there. Yeah. So in building applications, applications and systems exist at different scales. If you look at Google, Google is a giant in technology, providing applications like maps, YouTube, search. So it's also very related to businesses. Though some Cameroon, you have kenkeleries. You have like a warehouse where they store things like construction material, pipes and stuff. And then you have the store where you go place your order and then they can ship it to you. So the front end of the application is what interfaces with the user. You can think of it like having the front desk, where when you go to some business, you interact with the front desk, and then every other thing is in the background and they only come to you on demand, like when you need it. So a front end of an application is that part that the user interacts with. So we mostly call it the user interface or the UI, and there's a variety of them. It could be like a command line application where with just the black screen, or it could be something like Facebook where you have in your browser, you can actually click on buttons and enter comments in boxes, and there's a wide variety. And then the back end is actually the warehousing part. So you would have like railways, and you have all these transport mechanisms and even tunnels that connect from the front end that you have. And then they will transport your instructions or requests to the back end, just like the warehouse, and they will be processed. Then the response will be packaged and sent back to you to the front end. So those are the two main aspects of like programs today. And from an architectural point of view, it becomes easy division of labor. So you focus on the front end, focus on the back end, and then you connect them and you have an emergent application. Yeah, so I'll start with the front end. To become a front end developer, since you're dealing directly with the user, you need to understand the components that are needed to put together the screen that you want to build. I would assume that we're building like screens. Yeah. Because sometimes we would have command line applications that programmers use, or those who prefer those. But I would just go to like the ones we know, and the GUI, which is graphical user interface. So you need to understand like input and output. That's taking input from someone and giving them output. So from there, you can now look at the various components or structures that you can use to get input. So, for example, if you're logging into Facebook, you have different types of input. You have the box, the text box that you can type your username, and you have the password box that you can type your password, and you have a button that says login that you can also just click when you're ready. So becoming a UI and a front-end developer, you have to understand the technologies that are needed to command these input components. So there are mainly three languages for the web now, but although it's extending to desktop mobile applications, you need a language for for commanding these components. So HTML, which stands for Hypertext Markup Language, is a UI language that was designed to allow programmers to express these UI components. And then there's CSS, which stands for Cascading Style Sheets. So it's for makeup. So like, I mean, the ladies, when they want to go out to the club, right, they go paint their eyes, shape their eyebrows, and then paint it back. So CSS is a language for specifying how things look. So with CSS, you could give the background color of a button. You could style it, give it a border. You could even do 3D stuff if you want. You could do animations where you could say, all right, I want this login box to like slide into the page from the right to the left or from the left to the right. So you could all do those in styling. And then there is JavaScript, which is like a language that brings behavior to this front end or UI applications. So we can summarize it as such. You would have your components that you want that will give you structure, and you do those with HTML. Then you want them to look nice, so you do that with CSS, and then you want to give them a behavior. When somebody clicks, if they put in the wrong word, if you're expecting a username and they give a date, so you want to be able to tell them that this is wrong, please enter the correct username, just like you see with applications. So JavaScript is that robot that you tell it, okay, when I get this text, validate it like this, make sure it's this. If it's not, tell the user back. So summarily, the three main technologies for the front end are HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. HTML for structure, CSS for look and feel, and JavaScript for behavior. So rolling over to the back end. So once we have this front end facing side of our application, which is like a main shop with the help desk or receptionist, we now have to take those things and then go back and process them. Because sometimes a user may have a small phone, which may have 64 gigabytes of information, but they want to like search some path. Maybe they're traveling from Maryland to Atlanta. So you can't put all that data into the small 64 gigabyte device. So you need some backend, which could be a supercomputer that will process all the information and send back to the user only what they need. So the back end, you could also build it like a UI if you want, but to make it less complicated, the back end is also programming. So you have to set up your transport means to connect to the back end that will receive that data from the front end. Then you can validate it so that you prevent like hacking or involuntary access. Let's say like login, you have to check if you know the user or if they're who they claim to be. So you have to do authorization, then you do authentication, and then you send back data. So in the backend, we mostly need a database to store information. That's like the memory of the backend computer. You can think of it like a human or a robot. It needs memory. And then you give it instructions. So it has to know that, okay, if somebody logs in, I need to know if they're an administrator, if they're like what groups they belong to, what their profile is. So I will get all of those from the back end and then package it and send it back to the front end. So in terms of languages and putting the backend together, it's really big, and there's so many technologies. You could still use JavaScript. Some people use Python, Java. You could use any programming language, since the language is just a way of talking to the computer. So at the back end, you need your databases, you need your transport layers, you need maybe other backends. So you need to transport to another backend. Let's say if you're on Google and they want to know your location. Locations come from maps. So they may, from the search portion, they may contact the map backend, and it will have its own databases, its own components, its own workhorses that do what they do. So the backend is like that. Like you have the tip of this iceberg, but it's really big with varying technologies and covering it. In my experience, I mostly do papers. I also do Twitter. I do GitHub. GitHub is I would say, social media platform for programmers where people can host their projects. So just like if you're a writer, right? You're writing a book. It's made of chapters. It's made of table of contents. You could host it somewhere, even Wikipedia, and then people could interact with it. So with GitHub, GitLab, there are many of them. Programmers can host their code there. Then we have something called open source, which means the recipe for your application is open. People can see it. So I keep up by following GitHub and following people on Twitter, following pioneers in the field like Ken Thompson, who created Unix, Rob Pike, and who also contributed to Unix and also created Go, one of my favorite languages. So I keep up with these people. I search on GitHub if they have anything they've hosted. I go study it. What problem were they trying to solve? How did they solve it? So I studied that. And then I also learn more about programming from other fields than from programming itself. For example, in philosophy, I learn a lot about processes. I learn a lot in rhetoric, which is a branch of philosophy. I learn about like communication. So I use all the lessons that I learned from there about like division of labor, specialization. So if you're writing an essay, you have your thesis, and then you would have your paragraphs. Each paragraph will have like a topic sentence, and then you kind of expatiate in that paragraph. So you see that you've divided each paragraph is some sort of consolidated, and it focuses around the main idea, and then the emergent essay focuses on the thesis. So the same with an application. If I have an application that has to do with to-do lists, my thesis is like managing to-do lists. So I want to get the items, I want to know the status, if I'm working on them or if I've completed them. And that will be my thesis. And then I would go now to specific topic sentences. Let's say I want a list of the actual items. So I will now write the front end instructions to be able to manage a list of instructions. And then I would have another topic, which would be the status, which would tell me, okay, this item is completed, this item is pending, this item is in progress. So that's another topic. And then even interacting with the backend, if I want the user to persist the state, that's to be able to access their to-do list from anywhere, then I'll need the backend to store that information in. So that will be another topic. So practically, learning about programming and keeping in touch is pretty much a human activity. So I keep in touch from anywhere, from TV shows, from anime, from economics, from architecture, like from every space that I can. If there's anything that teaches me something, I just absorb it as much as I can. Lately, I've been interested in Bitcoin and programming applications on top of Bitcoin. So I came across Bitcoin around 2017. I read the white paper. Like I said, I try to study things from like papers. So I understood the design and it blew my mind. It was this banking and finance technology that is controlled by no one. It's just a peer-to-peer system where everyone is equal. And it was built on some mechanism called a proof of work consensus, where what is truth is backed by the work that was put into it. So I was fascinated by this technology. And now I'm learning how to build applications on top of it, like a personal bank, where I would store my Bitcoin and I can send it to other people. I can receive from other people. And then maybe I could start adding other modules or sub applications on top of it, like exchange. Let's say if someone is in Cameroon, I want to be able to extend it such that they can receive Bitcoin and they can cash it out as maybe mobile money credits or MTN Momo credits. So I'm learning that, and it's pretty much programming. So I just have to learn the structures that are there, connect them, use routers or like highways when I want to use backend systems if I want to like store some information, and use the UI to build the components like maybe send button, receive button, handling Bitcoin addresses and stuff like that. So it's pretty much taking all of my time, and I'm trying to pivot to spend the rest of my life working on this incredible system. Yeah, I am on Twitter. My Twitter handle is ebmesem, EBMESEM. That's my Twitter handle. I am on GitHub. My GitHub profile is MESB. So if you just go to github.com//MESB, you'll see my profile. You can follow me. You can send me a message. Similarly on Twitter. I am on Facebook too. forgot my Facebook handle. Yeah, but mostly Twitter, GitHub. You can get a handle of me. Yeah, for what I would like to leave the listener with is that the world, for those who are spiritual, even those who are not spiritual, the world is like some giant energy ball plus other energy entities that we can't even comprehend. But we ourselves, we have the ability to understand how these things work and then to be able to replicate how those things work around the tools we have. So I would say that if there's anything that you want to learn, try to go to the source, search. We are more connected today than before. On the internet, you could always search how to program a computer, what is a computer, how a computer is put together, what is programming, what is involved, anything. You can always Google it. So search and quest for knowledge should never cease. And even if you don't understand something, just keep looking at it. If it takes 10 years, fine, but don't give up.